All right. So just to kick off the debate and the panel discussion, just to give you a brief overview. I'm with Accenture. We are working on a number of CBDC projects with the Central Bank of France, with the Riksbank in Sweden, and clearly it is an exciting sort of environment that has developed very rapidly. And it is fair to say that CBDC was evolved from the margins, sort of the fringes of the central bank debate to its core, and has now been elevated to the center, really, of the international economic policy agenda. So a big change that happened over the last, I would say, 12 to 18 months. And just to serve as a reminder where we are and what is leading the discussion now. And I think this is particularly pertinent for the focus we want to have for this panel, namely the connection between CBDC and the international monetary system. So we had the ECB in October of last year, releasing a report that was interesting, in particular because it seemed to announce a completely new approach to how central bank money could be used in international transactions. And this is to say that a future digital euro should be used also by non-residents. So this is a significant departure of existing central bank practice, where central bank money is very local. The possibility that a future digital euro could be held by non-residents would allow central bank money for the first time to be used in international payments. So that is a significant shift. And I think it's also in recognition that something quite meaningful would have to change if we really wanted to tackle in earnest the persistent deficiencies in international payments. And this then should also give rise to a greater internationalization of the euro, which, as you know, the international monetary system, is suffering from the fact that it is using only a very narrow set of national currencies. The possibility to make the euro more broadly available could change that and make the euro a more prominent currency in international payments. So that is certainly one important sort of impulse that the ECB has been given to the debate. And then there's the G20 that has recognized that CBDC could play a key role to advance and improve international payments. So as part of the Italian presidency, this will now be, or is now being debated as part of the working group on the international financial architecture. So again, a recognition that CBDC, is now very much mainstream and part of the core agenda. And then there have been two developments in the US, which I think are worth mentioning. One is the US Office of the Controller of the Currency, one of the lead regulators in the US, that recently published its so-called interpretive letter, where it has basically encouraged banks to adopt a stable coin, so digital coins issued by banks, and offer blockchain-enabled financial payments applications, in large part to ensure that banks can remain competitive in what is an increasingly changing payments environment, where blockchain is likely going to become one of the key technologies going forward. So again, an important signal that while CBDC is about the medium, this is about the change towards more of a token-based financial market infrastructure. And then there is the filing by the SEC against Ripple. And this is just to serve as a reminder that the regulatory framework is still not quite clear. That is still seen, certainly in many countries, as an obstacle as to why we have not seen more token-based, financial applications. And then the Swiss Blockchain Act. Switzerland is one of the leading countries when it comes to all things digital, and a new law came into effect now on the 1st of February, which basically gives new certainty when it comes to the use of digital currencies, the use of digital exchanges, and tokenizations more generally. So a lot going on, and I think a lot that is highly supportive of moving further towards token-based payment media. Now, just a quick reminder: why the international monetary system, and why is this debate so important? And I mentioned earlier about the ECB and a digital euro. Just a quick reminder: the international monetary system doesn't work as as it is intended to work. And in large part, this is reflected in persistent large external imbalances. And you see here on the chart, if you look at the average number of current account surplus countries, which is oscillating between 5 and 15% of GDP, and then there is the average amount of deficit countries, again a number of between 5 and 10% of GDP. Clearly this these persistent large imbalances is a problem, and the system doesn't manage to adjust orderly. And this gives rise repeatedly to large exchange rate volatility, which you can see here, in the US dollar. And that is, the problem we want to tackle. How can we make the system adjust more smoothly? How can we avoid these large exchange rate volatility, which eventually, harm financial international integration? So just a quick reminder, where's the debate now? In many projects I work on, what is the discussion we are now leading around CBDC? And certainly, it is to be seen in connection to access. Should central bank money access become available more broadly? It's clearly a key debate, and I think CBDC is only interesting if it is seen with a revision of access policy, something that the ECB already hinted to. Then it is about control. If CBDC is to be made available more broadly, how should central banks control what is their currency, and quite possibly, of course, in a foreign jurisdiction? And we have to rethink, the prudential and jurisdictional boundaries that are likely to govern CBDC use. Then there's the consistent fear of disintermediation. Could the CBDC lead to the public to basically forego their bank deposits, as CBDC is crowding out bank deposits, and therefore is reducing the bank's funding base, and could impair banks' ability to conduct asset operations, extending loans, etc. Clearly, an issue. Then there's the integration. Any blockchain-enabled payments applications, be it CBDC or other, would have to be compatible, with the existing, core banking and payment system. Certainly something that can be achieved. And then there's the interoperability. There will be a multitude of blockchains on which CBDC will be issued. How will these blockchains communicate with one another? There are two possible approaches. One is the migration of users and assets across network, or the other is the migration of control. If we can equip central banks with sufficient controls, even on foreign networks, then they may be content in offering their medium to foreign networks, for example. The legal debate, I hinted at it earlier. It's a lot of, it's not only about legal certainty when it comes to digital assets and CBDC, but it's also how do you redraw the prudential and jurisdictional boundaries, when a medium becomes more widely available. And then there's still the debate about the medium itself. CBDC, we see the innovation exclusively in the fact that it is about the adoption of a token-based medium. So, there is a debate, should it be account-based, should it be token-based? An account-based CBDC would simply be an extension of existing large value payment systems. We see very little innovation there. The new thing, really, the new functionality is the adoption of tokens and the native capabilities that make tokens so much more powerful than many of the account-based applications. So key use cases, and I conclude with that, is where central bank money, of course, plays a key role. There's no financial market where central bank money is more important than the foreign exchange market, which, as you know, is the largest market by far. And adoption of CBDC here could lead to a significant change in the institutional arrangement of payments. CBDC is likely to play the biggest role in cross-border payments more generally. For the general public use, CBDC could be interesting, but it's very use case specific. I think, typically, certainly in advanced countries, there's a large array of digital payment medium. It's not quite clear why CBDC, would be needed. But there are good use cases, but most of the advantages will probably accrue to the central bank, not to the user. And then there are the fiscal operations you've seen, in particular in the US, debate about CBDC and benefit distribution. I think that is an interesting area where CBDC is offering a new infrastructure that could also be used for fiscal operations, by basically leveraging on the fact that CBDC would allow far more direct payments relationship, which could include between the Treasury, and end user. So I leave it there, and hopefully that has given you just a few ideas about where we are likely where the debate is at the moment.